Hey everyone, this is Mario again, coming at you with another movie review. Today I'm reviewing a movie that I just revisited today, and I decided to revisit it because I got the inkling to reread the novel, and I decided, since I'm rereading the novel, maybe afterwards I'll watch the movie and review it. Anyway, I have the VHS, but it's rewinding at the moment. That's how I have it on. Anyway, I have the book in my hand though, because I am going to be doing some comparison and contrasting. Anyway, and of course, the movie I'm talking about is the adaptation of this novel, Pet Sematary. The movie, of course, is directed by Mary Lambert, which this is basically the only one of her movies that people really talk about. I mean, some people will talk about the movie sequel that she directed, Pet Sematary 2. Maybe that one urban legend movie she did, but other than this movie, she's only mostly known for music videos, which I do got a funny story regarding that I'll get into in a little bit. The screenplay is done, of course, by Stephen King, and from what I understand, he was kind of hands-on with this movie. I mean, he even has a small cameo in the movie. And it stars Dale Midkiff, Fred Gwynne, you may have mispronouncing it, Denise Crosby, Miko Hughes, Berdahl, and Susan Blommaert. Remember, I suck at pronouncing certain names. Blommaert. It's M-A-E-R-T. That's what I'm having trouble pronouncing. Maert. Okay. Blommaert. That's what I'm guessing his pronunciation is. But anyway. Now, I'm going to go real quickly into the plot of the movie, like I normally do, and then I'll get into it. The plot of the movie is we got the Creed family. We got Lewis, played by Dale, who is a doctor who's got a job at the University of Maine at a hospital. Then, of course, we got his wife, Rachel, played by Denise Crosby. We have their daughter, Ellie, Blaze. And then, of course, we got their son, Gage, Miko. They move into a house that's on the road. There's a couple of hidden houses nearby. They're befriended quickly by their neighbor just across the street, Jud, played beautifully by Fred Gwynne. Or Gwynne or whatever. Like I said, stuck with names. Anyway, there's a little path that runs around next to the house. Jud takes them there one day, and they see it's a pet cemetery. Now, right away you can tell that Rachel is not enthralled by the idea of living by a cemetery. As we find out, ever since her sister died when she was younger, she's had a strange fear of death, and it's made her uncomfortable. Anyway, they go, when Thanksgiving rolls around, everyone except Lewis goes back to Chicago to visit Rachel's family, and it's there we find out that Lewis has always been on the outs with his in-laws, which I'll address that in a little bit because it's only hinted at loosely in the movie. While the family's gone, the pet cat Church, who they did get fixed in order to make sure that he would not wander, gets struck and hit by a car. Jud decides to take Lewis to the place beyond the cemetery, which is the Micmac burial ground. There he buries the cat, and the next morning the cat comes back. And we find out the Micmac burial ground can bring the dead back to life. Now, of course, as Jud tells him, the ground went bad, so anything buried there will come back changed. Now, of course, this is a curious thing, so Lewis asks a question that any logical person would ask. Has anyone buried a pet there? I mean, a human there, excuse me. Of course, they buried pets there. And, of course, Jud denies it at first, but you can tell by his reaction that probably at least one has been buried there. Not that long afterwards, tragedy strikes and Gage is killed by a truck. And it's when this happens that you can tell Lewis is probably thinking it. Jud tells him probably not a good idea to do that, and he explains to him why, because when he was a little bit after World War II, someone did bury their kid up there, and he came back very changed. And the rest of the novel is basically Lewis making a bad decision and paying for it. And that's the rest of it, and that's all the plot. I mean, I know it's semi-vague, which gives away some of it, but anyway, first thing I should probably address, before I go into it, I should probably tell the story. Now, anyway, I first saw this movie when I was in cinemas literature, and I did see the movie before I read the novel, just a heads up. And this story, my teacher, Miss Studi, actually shared when we saw this movie, and it was, I don't remember what music video it was, but Miss Studi, before she was a teacher, she did minor acting and stuff. She did like minor characters, and she also was in a couple of music videos as a background character. Anyway, she was I don't remember if it was a music video or it was like a TV thing, but I think it was more likely a music video. Mary Lambert was directing it. And Studi recognized her, and she asked for Mary's autograph, and Mary was all very humble, like, "You actually know me from one of my directing movies?" Cool. That's not exactly what she said, but you could tell she's kind of surprised that she's recognized. And of course, I believe she did get the autograph, which that's kind of cool. I know if I got the chance, I'd want to get my VHS tape autographed by her, just like I'd like to get it autographed by King. I know it's kind of a nice story, but anyway, Lambert, I have to say, her direction in the movie, not the best for a King movie I've seen. I mean, it's nowhere near as good as Rob Reiner was in Stand By Me and Misery. Definitely not as good as Kubrick with The Shining, even though my big problem with that is it's not a very faithful adaptation. Something on the top of my head. Haven't seen Christine, so I can't compare it to that. Something off the top of my head. Haven't seen Maximum Overdrive, so I can't compare it to that. I just noticed most of the theatrical King movies I've seen are from the 80s. I haven't seen Carrie in a long time, so I can't compare it to that. Let's just say, direction-wise, it's not the best one, but I'd say it's pretty good. I have to say, for the story, it works. Elliot Goldenthal, he does a magnificent score. The two pieces of the score I really like the most are the opening, because it's kind of a slow, creepy thing, and it's even creepier because you have like a kid's chorus subtly in the background. It also helps considering that the opening credit scene is basically showing the actual cemetery, so kind of creepy. And then that score near the end of the movie on piano, I actually want to get that score because that score's creepy. And of course, everyone knows the Ramones song from this movie. I don't want to be buried in a pet cemetery. Everyone knows that song. I love that song, but upon rewatching the movie, I love the song, but it feels more like it's a song based on the movie than a song written for the movie. I mean, if it's a song written for the movie, I would imagine a more slower paced, slower tempoed, creepier song, like something like Danzig would write. I can imagine him doing a piano cover of it. I can imagine it'd be more like, I don't wanna be buried in a pet cemetery. I don't wanna live my life again. It'd be like that, kind of like how he did when he did his version of 13, that song he wrote for Johnny Cash. Anyway, acting-wise, if there's anyone that really stands out in the movie, it's Fred as Jud. I mean, he embodies that character 110%. I cannot think of anyone else to play it. Dale and Denise as Lewis and Rachel. They fill the roles okay. I mean, nothing award-winning, but nothing I'm like, I don't believe it. But the performances vary. I mean, I actually like their performance in the movie better after Gage dies. Maybe it's because they're a little bit more grief-stricken there. And they actually sell the grief-strickenness a lot better than the happiness, I guess. But it works. And Dale, as his character is going insane with grief and stuff, and of course what happens, I bought it a lot. And Denise, the thing that was best probably about her performance is probably the whole touchy subject with death. She sold that pretty well. Let's see, Blaise Berdahl as Ellie. She's not the best child actress, but not the worst in my opinion. She's serviceable. Miko, everyone knows him. Of course, he played that one kid in Spawn, and also his probably best known role is Heather Langenkamp's son in New Nightmare, which is probably my favorite role of his. Here, he does okay as the kid, and I do like how they, at the end of the movie, they mix him with some practical effects and maybe a midget in a suit. It's kind of hard to tell. And I haven't watched the special features on the DVD because I know there are special features if I remember right. Then of course the actors that play the minor roles, like, yes, I am looking at the thing, so sue me. Let's see, I'm looking for the guy that, like, the guys that play Rachel's parents. They do a pretty good job and they kind of embody it. Now, a lot of people are... Now, you guys are probably wondering, how faithful is this movie to the book? Now, I will have to say... I'll tell you this, it's a lot more faithful than, let's say, The Shining is, because that one just takes some of the basic ideas and just makes a plot that's similar but different. It's about... Let's see, I'm trying to think of another one. I have to say it's probably about as faithful as Misery is. I mean, it takes the same story, but like tweaks some of the stuff to fit the transfer from written media to visual media, and it does it pretty well. Now, of course, you could expect he's going to be faithful. I mean, King wrote the thing himself, but there's one change from this to screen that I do not like, which I will address. Now, the plot-wise, some of the stuff is condensed. Like, we get that Jud and Lewis become friends. We get that done pretty well in just one scene. I mean, the novel has a couple scenes, a couple conversations of them going back and forth that it really builds it up, and also it makes clear that Jud is also kind of a father figure for Lewis because he never knew his father or his grandfather. So Jud kind of fills that role, and you can tell that it kind of seems like he doesn't have kids. So you can tell that he kind of sees Lewis probably as a son he never had, but because of their age difference, they're probably, they still are kind of friendly and stuff. And from that, you can tell the kids do kind of take to Jud kind of like a grandfather-like character. Just like with Rachel, she actually has a fight with Lewis in the novel after they visit the pet cemetery, and that's cut out of the movie, which it doesn't bother me, but instead it's actually put to where she overreacts a little bit in the cemetery, which I actually like how they have Jud react a little bit to. Like, you can see in his head, he's like, there's something wrong with death there, and then he has that whole thing about the cemetery is where the dead speak, which I have to say that is kind of true if you think about it, with the gravestones and stuff. And I just read the novel. I'm trying to think very carefully. The ending, more or less the same, except for the very end, which I will address that probably at the very end of this review, because I am going to read the last page of the novel for you. So for those of you who haven't read the novel but have seen the movie, you can see what I mean by saying that that's more open. Because the ending in the novel is a lot more open than the movie is, which it doesn't bother me. I mean, change. Another difference is that the novel goes a lot more in detail, which obviously it's a novel, it goes in a lot more detail about Lewis's outing with his in-laws, which I hated the father-in-law character just from seeing the movie. After reading the novel, I just want to smack him so hard upside the head. Now, of course, you're saying, okay, come on, I mean, all father-in-laws are going to be kind of like pricks at one time or another. It can't be that bad. Kind of is, because as you see from the funeral scene, he really doesn't like Lewis, but the novel, there's a scene in the novel that really shows how much he doesn't like Lewis. When Lewis and Rachel were just engaged, he tried to buy Lewis off. He tried to bribe him into breaking off the engagement. In exchange, he said, break up the engagement and I'll pay your tuition through medical school. Because he was all going like, oh, no one's good enough for my daughter. I know a bunch of people who go through med school like you. You're a dime a dozen. And of course, you could tell from that Lewis is mad. I mean, I would be mad if my future father-in-law tried to do that. I would want to smack him. And then, of course, starting the crap at the funeral, which I have to say, I like the little fight at the funeral better in the movie because, like I said, I hate the father-in-law, and I think he should be the one who gets the short end of the stick. Those of you who've read the novel and seen the movie know what I'm talking about. But that scene is not really important to the overall plot, but it's just a nice little detail it's adding. So, if you guys have only seen the movie, you didn't like the father-in-law character, now you got another reason not to like him. Yeah, like, go Lewis, go! Even though it's a funeral, go Lewis, go! Yeah. Let's see, another thing is that this scene is not in the novel, but I have to say it's a nice little addition to the plot, because it homes in the fact of, A, how much the cat changes after he comes back, and 2, that there's something supernatural about him. And that's a scene where Lewis is in the tub, he's all relaxing and stuff, like, oh, all of a sudden a dead rat drops, then he looks up and there's church. How the hell did you get in here? I mean, I cannot help but say I do laugh a little bit at the scene because it is kind of a dark, humorous scene. And there is some humor in this movie, but it's kind of dark humor. Some people might not find it that funny, but I like humor, in the words of George Carlin, I'm a sick evil fuck! Anyway, speaking of church, I have to say I applaud whoever was the animal wrangler in this movie, because I know that it's easy to tell there are certain scenes that it might be an animatronic, but it's kind of hard to tell. But there are a lot of scenes you can tell it actually is a cat, and how they got the cat to act that way on command, I applaud, because when you first see the cat, he's acting like you normally expect a cat would be, like a cat. But then after he comes back, it's Evil Kitty. It's like Mr. Bigglesworth if he actually was not in a comedy. Like if, like an alien cat or something, I don't know. Like if Michael Myers had his brain transferred into the body of a cat, that's what it'd be. Or no, Freddy Krueger, he takes the form of a cat. Meow! Am I gonna fight that bitch? Meow! Like, it'd be like that. It's just an evil cat, and then even more, it's also good with you. Now, one change from the novel to the movie, another one that I don't really mind, is the nature of the people when they come back. Because the novel, it actually makes it clear that they taunt the people, that they're more methodical in their darkness. Like the first guy, he actually has been following them and he knows all their secrets. Like Jud's secret is he actually goes into this one city and goes to a whorehouse. And then a couple other ones, the one guy has been embezzling funds and stuff, so he's more like methodical. Whereas in the movie, they're more animalistic, which I have to say for a screen when you don't have much time to explain stuff, that works a little bit more and also gives them more of a mob reason to. And it actually makes the kid a little bit creepier in a way, because he's just like an animalistic kid that, just knows basic words. So it makes the kid a little bit creepier. Especially, I played with mommy. And he's a demon kid, which that is what the thing about the burial ground that it hints that when the people come back, maybe they're possessed by a demon, which that is only briefly, subtly explained in the movie. In the novel, Lewis, when he's actually going up to the ground the second time, he actually sees what tainted the burial ground. It's a demon called a Wendigo, which they're a demon in Native American lore, if I remember correctly. I don't remember what they do. I think they turn people into cannibals or something, but apparently it tainted the ground, and that's why they come back the way they are. And we see it twice in the novel. Once when Lewis is going up there, and then at the end when his buddy actually sees it. Another change from the novel is Pascal. He only talks with Lewis once in the novel, and it's done kind of in a foreshadowing of the major plot components. King did something similar in The Shining involving Danny and Tony. Of course, that one actually is more of a plausible, nothing plausible, supernatural, but more of an explanation than would make sense. And then Pascal only after that in the novel just talks to the girl. I actually like the fact that he increasingly is talking a little bit better. Now, one thing that's not really explained as well in the movie as it is in the novel is why Jud even takes Lewis up to the cemetery in the first place. I mean, in the movie, it seems he's doing it, it's his buddy, he's going to help his buddy out. Maybe, like he explains, maybe he didn't think the girl was ready to lose her pet, which he does say something like that in the novel. But the novel, it's more of a bigger explanation, and this is the reason, and this is tied into the reason I do not like that they expanded the role of Missy. Missy in the novel is a minor character that I don't remember correctly if you actually see her. I know they mention her a couple times as being a babysitter and doing some laundry, but you never see her. Why King chose to expand her role, I don't know. I mean, we see her 2 times, and then it's acting like we're supposed to care when she commits suicide. And I'm like, what? And then, of course, the whole thing, her funeral is supposed to involve the whole thing of death that we're supposed to. The whole thing about teaching them about death that leads to us finding out about Zelda, Rachel's sister. Okay. There was a character in the novel, King, that you could have used for that, and it also would have given Jud more of a reason to take Lewis up there. Would have added a little bit more running time to the movie, but it would have worked. And that is, of course, Norma, who is Jud's wife in the novel. In the novel, the reason Jud takes Lewis up to the cemetery is because Norma has a mild heart attack. Jud worried. It happens on Halloween. Lewis is actually there when it happens, so he manages to help stabilize her while the ambulance gets there. And Jud feels that he owes Lewis a favor, and the first time that he comes up for him to repay the favor is when Church gets hit by a truck. So it's like, Yeah, I think I better take you up there to repay it. And also the thing I said, of course, about not sure the kid is ready to lose a pet. And the whole thing with death, the funeral in the novel is Norma's, I mean, and it ties in with that same thing. What you could have done is you could have had Norma be like a minor character in the novel. You see her, like you know who she is at least. And you can see, since Jud's more of an important character, you can see which is his wife, so of course we're supposed to care a little bit. Maybe one day Jud calls him over and says, I think my Norma's having a heart attack. He runs over there, he stabilizes her, then the rest of the time she's in the hospital. And as the ambulance is pulling out, you have Jud tell Lewis, I'll pay you, I owe you one, Lewis. Alright, now you're done, I'm doing my job. No, Lewis, I owe you one. And then after that, you do the cat thing, and then you mention through exposition that Norma passed away in the hospital. You could have just done that. That would have been a little bit more expected. And it would have worked just as well. And it also would have at least meant something more than, just having a minor character that we don't even care about commit suicide and us supposed to feel a little bit sorry for her. Because at least with Norma, we would feel sorry because, hey, it's Jud's wife and stuff. And of course, some people probably blame her. Some people probably blame her, though. Oh, if it wasn't for her, Jud would have taken him up to the cemetery. And, yeah, but it doesn't matter. But now, the movie has a downbeat ending, just like the novel, it's less downbeat, but still there. But it's one of those downbeat endings I don't mind, because it's kind of tragic. And the tragedy is that all the stuff that happens in the last act, Lewis brought upon himself. I mean, the first time going to the cemetery with Jud, okay, that one you don't really blame him for going up there. I mean, it's his kid's pet. He doesn't want her to have to deal with death yet, but mostly because of his wife. But yeah, but you can understand that when he takes Gage up there, and even the last part, that he's just asking for trouble. And even though you don't really want to say it, he just brought all the pain upon himself, and the pain, what happens to him, he kind of deserves it. And it's tragic, and I don't mind it, I guess, because it kind of adds to the moral of the story. And the moral of the story is, and it's something Jud repeatedly says, is that sometimes dead is better. That, like, if you had the power to bring your loved ones back, that's the power of the story, is that if you had the power to bring your loved ones back, would you? I know I wouldn't, because it's better to have them in your memories than to bring them back and have them be changed, not the way that you remember them. And that's where the power of the story is. It's that monkey. It's a story that echoes the monkey paw stories in a way. And the thing about the novel is that King wrote it in the late 70s originally, when he was doing a tenure of teaching at the university he went to. So yeah, university. And he was living on a road like this. There was a pet cemetery nearby that kids bury animals with. And his son was almost hit on the road. So, those are the crux of the story. And then he took the rest of it. And the funny thing is, this was a novel he was actually hesitant to publish because he thought he went too far with it. And his wife and his best friend Peter Straub even agreed with him. And he only published it originally because Doubleday wanted him to publish the last novel that he had on his contract. And I have to say, it's actually, I put it in my top 10 favorite Stephen King novels. Or stories in general. It's that well written. And the movie, if I put it on the top 10, I'd probably put it near the bottom. Maybe like number 8 or something, but I'm not doing a list of that yet. But to me, I find the movie enjoyable. I mean, like I mentioned, the acting, you could have gotten better actors, maybe, for the main characters. Jud, I'd keep him the way it is. And I know they plan on remaking this movie, which could be interesting. Like, if Guillermo del Toro, who's said he'd like to do it, I'd like to see him do it. It'd be interesting. Who they get to play the roles, I can't think of anyone, but if they do remake it, I hope that they do it the way, like I mentioned, I would have done it, have Norma be in there. And also, I'd actually like to hear Danzig do a cover of Pet Sematary for the movie. That would be cool. But the score, I don't think is going to. And if the remake ends up not happening, it's not going to be a skin up my nose. Now, this is the last page of the novel. And it's called Epilogue. The police came late that afternoon. They asked questions, but voiced no suspicions. The ashes were still hot. They had not yet been raked. Lewis answered their questions. He seemed satisfied. They spoke outside, and he wore a hat. That was good. If they had seen his gray hair, they might have asked more questions. That would have been bad. He wore his gardening gloves, and that was good too. His hands were bloody and ruined. He played solitaire that night until late after midnight. He was just dealing a fresh hand when he heard the back door open. What you buy is what you own, and sooner or later what you own will come back to you, Lewis Creed thought. He did not turn around, but only looked at the cards as the slow, gritting footsteps approached. He saw the Queen of Spades. He put his hands on it. The steps ended directly behind him. Silence. A cold hand fell on Lewis's shoulder. Rachel's voice was grating, full of dirt. "Darling," it said. See? Told you. More open. Anyway, my rating for the movie... I have to say probably 4 out of 5, in all honesty. Like I said, interesting King adaptation. One I would rank up there is probably in the top 10 somewhere, and probably in the bottom or near the middle. But it's one of those King adaptations I can understand if not everybody likes it because of some of the because how they did some of the transitions from the source material. But me, I like it.